This conference will now be recorded.
And so we don't have a quorum right now. I don't know if y'all heard that, but we don't. And Melissa Brown is new, so we'll welcome her. Is she a board member, visitor?
Yes.
Board.
She's been named by the city clerk.
Okay. So you count the quorum, that's why I was asking. So the first action item is the minutes from the April meeting. Those were emailed to everyone. You may have them before you. We don't need a motion to approve right now because we don't have a quorum, but are there any comments or corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Let me just make sure my phone is on sound. The main thing we're doing today is we're going to look at the SWOT analysis, the SEDS update and discussion, and go over the period of public comment. I asked to have to switch the order on the agenda so that we do the SEDS update first and the SWOT second. Are they not hearing me? Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Anyway, we're going to switch the order on the agenda if there's no objections to that. And I think that'll flow really smoothly, and we'll let you take it away.
All right, so starting with the SEDS update first, I'll fast forward that a little bit. So where we're at currently is we completed the background summary. That was the very first thing that we did. This is really the longest process. We moved on to the SWOT, and so what you have before you, and if you're online, you should have it in the email. And I would double check your calendar invites because there were 2 that got sent out, and the first one seemed to have been canceled, and then the second one has the materials that you need, as well as there should have been another email that you received that went out to the SEDS steering committee, and that one contains some of the documents that we're going to review. Probably when we don't have to get there yet, but I'll let you know when. But back in April, we did our SWOT workshop, and you should have these 2 documents called the SWOT analysis and the executive summary. So these are the just a little report on what the changes were and why they were made and how they were made. So it contains methodology that we used. If we have any questions about it, now it's time to discuss it. I think any edits that the board or the steering committee wants to make should be done before it goes to public comment. It's going to be much easier to do that than to try to incorporate it and do massive reforms after the public comment period. Not that I think there will need to be. But our next process is our strategy and evaluation review. So basically, we're developing the strategies that I want to pursue. We're going to want to see what we're going to carry over from the previous SEDS, and then see how we're going to evaluate that. And so this is going to look like this. Can you go over to the the Excel form? So this is the form that has been sent out to you guys. It's a template that I created that it lists all of the strategies from the previous SEDS, and then it kind of breaks down a couple of different options. So it's asking you to say, okay, did this strategy work in your community? Is it something that we can do today? And it's opening up ways for organizations to kind of see what they can do going forward. It's also going to contain a companion that's kind of like a written section. So this one has a bunch of drop-down menus. It has a couple of different sections for proposing new strategies. And then the final tab at the bottom, if you go to that. No, you have the tabs, yeah. So right.
Tracking and measures.
Yeah. So this one is going to basically help us develop our evaluation framework. So we know going forward how we're going to keep tabs and who's going to keep tabs. Because while we did see a lot of action from our last sets, it was kind of hard to measure the effect of it. And I really, really wanted to make sure as we're narrowing our strategies to be more effective, we're also narrowing and capturing everything that we're doing properly. It's just going to go, further for accountability, and it's going to go further for our narratives when we're trying to apply for grants and whatnot. We can go back to the PowerPoint. Any questions on this so far?
Before we move on, so I'm going to lean it. We're going to be really good friends. So before we move away from this, just as a reminder, the executive summary and the SWOT update is the result of the last meeting we had where we went over the old sets and we identified what are the things that are still true, that are strengths or opportunities. And so we basically reviewed the last analysis and decided what was true for this one. And then we went back and we added strengths that have developed or threats that are new. So this overall summary covers your ability to herd cats. But it came out, I think, a pretty solid assessment. I hope y'all had time to read it, but he did, I think, capture everything we talked about. But if you haven't read it, do a quick glance to make sure that we didn't miss any key points. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Great. And we are at quorum now, so we will be able to.
Okay, so we're gonna back up on the agenda for a second. The minutes of the meeting of April 2nd were emailed to everyone in your meeting invitation. And if we didn't have any comments, if we don't have any recommendations for change, then we need a motion to approve. And can we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, we have it's approved.
Cynthia
All right.
has her hand raised.
Okay. Cynthia, were you raising your hand about a question or you were just approving?
I was just approving, yeah.
Apologies. Okay.
All right. So going back to the overview. So once we get all of that feedback from you guys, and I do encourage this to disseminate this amongst your staff. Whoever you think has knowledge of happenings or any of the projects that y'all have been working on, I would really love to get their input. Again, this is the whole point of the stakeholder input is to get as many voices as possible. And the more I have to consolidate and the more people I know are willing and are capable of helping, the more effective these strategies that we develop are going to become. So there are a lot of them listed. I would encourage you guys to be very strategic as you select which ones to carry forward. If it's something you feel your organization or your jurisdiction, your city, your county, whatever, it isn't something that is suited for, there is an option to mark that. So that doesn't mean that that strategy is going to go away. It's just saying our region doesn't need this. We need these other kinds of strategies. And since the SEDS is supposed to be reflective of the whole region, not just Bell County, not just the metropolitan area, we want to make sure that these strategies that we implement here aren't the ones that we're going to try to implement in Milam County or in Coryell. Like different needs need different voices and different solutions. So the remaining timeline that we have is our next and final SEDS steering committee meeting will be July 22nd. And this is when we should have all of our feedback from those forums. I actually think I sent the deadline incorrectly from that, so I'm going to have to send that out and edit it. So if we can just get your evaluation sometime in the next couple of weeks before that meeting, that would give me sufficient time to kind of read through it all and compile it and create a report. for that meeting, so that way we can sit down, discuss it, and decide what we're going to proceed with. Following that, it'll be about a week while I assemble a final draft, and that draft is going to go up to public comment, or sorry, it'll be a first draft of the final draft, but that'll go to a 30-day public comment period during which no edits can be done. It's just collecting feedback that will be posted online, and it will have a couple hard copies. So I'll make sure to send that to you guys as well to distribute and to kind of post. Once we have that feedback, our goal is to bring it into our DDCT meeting in October to ratify it, and then send it over to executive committee to do the final approval before we submit to the EDA. And then that in October is when the window for renewal of our grant begins. So as long as everything is in by then, and we have our submission in by the end of the year, we should be good to go to begin implementation plan.
So on public comments, so sometimes public comments are true and sometimes they're not. Same for everybody in the room, I suppose. But when we get public comments, how are they incorporated?
It's going to be a set of notes. Ultimately, the final decision is with the steering committee, right? So we get public comments, we're able to, take them and use them, or ignore them if it's really something that's, not necessary. It's more of a compliance item with the EDA that we have to do this public comment period. I've seen a couple posted already by other COGs, and I mean, they have their responses public, and there's maybe 3 or 4 people that commented on it. I would hope more people would, because it does affect them a lot more than they think it does. But yeah, ultimately, whatever goes into our sets is up to those of us who are creating it. So I briefly walked by this on how the strategy development workshop is going to work and how those forms are going to work. So there's looking at the goals from the 2022 that are all listed. Are we going to carry them, modify them, replace them, or retire them? And we're going to evaluate on whether you saw these goals and these objectives be reached and in what ways. So there are projects that we were able to do that fell under resilience or emergency preparedness that meets our goals. That is something that we can see, okay, this strategy worked to reach this goal, but we don't know how effective. And so we want to make sure that we're able to see what's working more. So if we get a better return of interest in one way, then that's the one that we're going to continue pursuing. There's going to be opportunity for us to propose new strategies and looking at how we're going to track and measure everything. So I do, like I said, encourage y'all to look at the reflection. You don't have to write an essay if you feel compelled to. I love to read. I love to write. So I'll definitely take all that into account. But we just want to be actionable. I don't want to be here in 5 years saying, okay, well, we came up with a lot of good ideas, but we didn't really do anything. I want to make sure that this plan ultimately in the next 5 years is going to allow us to have a much more resilient region, much stronger and better reflective region. So for your organization, I do ask that you think about what you guys think you could lead, what efforts you think you can contribute, and we do want to make sure that everyone who's involved in our steering committee in particular, that we're connecting these organizations together and having that interconnectivity so that if we have an idea for a project that can't be done by one organization, that we can create those partnerships internally through the COG, whichever way we need to do to make sure that that idea comes to fruition. Yeah, so any questions on that? Or comments? All right, I'll go back to the SWOT analysis. Okay, so here in the executive summary, it is a breakdown of what we discussed and what changed based on those templates that I sent out and received. Based on how many times something appeared, I created a weighting system. The result is 18 strengths, 23 weaknesses, 25 opportunities, and 12 threats. And as Linda was asking me earlier, these numbers don't really mean anything. It just means this is what we came up with as a region. And if we have more weaknesses and strengths, then we need to do more to address our weaknesses rather than, you know, trying to come up with more strengths. Those 18 strengths are stuff we can build upon to address those weaknesses. Are the threats that are here, we want to address those as well, and looking at the opportunities to see how we're going to grow. So all of this is fully covered in the executive summary. Largely, most of the items from 2022 slides are carrying over with some modification. There were some items that were jointly put together that we're now separating because they do cover different areas of accountability. So for example, the broadband sector was mixed in with energy and some other assets. So it's best to split those, and we have the Texas Regional Broadband Program that we're working on now. That aspect could fall under there, or the aquifer under water planning, et cetera. We don't want to put everything together because that just muddies our metrics. There are a couple things that we were made aware of, frankly, that the youth programs that were available are just not being utilized to their maximum utility. So a lot of the strengths or the items listed in the previous sets were just modified to reflect awareness as opposed to like lack of there being that. We removed references to COVID-19, to damage from the 2021 storm, and some other items that just didn't really fit in with where we're wanting to go, or are just simply beyond our capacity at the moment. Like the unified code ones, for example, I think that is a really good idea to address. It was listed as a weakness, I believe, a lack of unified codes. That's something that is going to take a lot of regional coordination, a lot of city and county and state coordination. So it's not really something that it's beyond our scope to address. Yeah. So we do have 4 new additions in our opportunity categories, which is the I-4 teen corridor expansion, the targeted career pathways, which we can do through our education through workforce, and then working on leveraging our available resources to attract data centers. And so we added another thread, sorry. The only threat that was added, I think, was the severe weather and flood risk. And this was just kind of in light of the tragedy last year in the Hill Country, and wanting to be prepared and ready to act should anything like that start. So ultimately, the SWOT is designed to help us develop the strategies that we can act on, and then ultimately present to the EDA to say, hey, these are the things we need help with. So what can we do? I think that's all for that. Any questions, any discussions, or we can walk through the analysis if you'd like.
David, I have a comment
Yes.
I'd like to share. So, although personally, I like the addition of the item for data center attraction, there's a real public sentiment about that right now, and that's very specific. And if this is going to have to be passed by, this document's going to have to be passed by the elected officials of the region, we might be aware of what the reaction may be to that. Um, I, we know that there's some local sentiment about data centers within the public, but it's trickling up, and it's a state discussion as well. So I guess I just wanted to say that, and if maybe consideration of widening or making that broader for like industrial investment or just investment attraction. Um, I, Advanced manufacturing is a very specific thing, but I think what we're talking about is the attraction of new investments into our region. And because we know that manufacturers are using more power now than they ever have before. And so maybe consideration of broadening data center attraction to something larger scope, and the awareness that the elected officials they may or may not be okay with call out for data centers in this plan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree that the framing of data centers is often very politically charged. So I do think I can modify the language to reflect more industrial expansion.
So Cynthia, I think that's a really, really good point. And what if it was more something along the lines of new and emerging industry? So that it isn't, so that we capture more than, to your point, more than advanced manufacturing, but new and emerging industries.
It could be
Yeah, I think
attraction.
that's great, Ginger.
They're also growing internally, so it could be attraction and growth. So new and emerging industry attraction and growth.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you guys for that for sure. I think once we have kind of a finalized draft, I would love it if you guys walk through the language and have that kind of political mentality to see, okay, how can we make this the most neutral and the most appealing as possible? Because yeah, data center is a word that you say and people automatically have an opinion, and it's not always informed, but we want to make sure that if we're going to bring them into our area, that they're done properly and we address the concerns of the public. All right. Any other notes on the analysis? I see your page marked up, but if you don't want to walk.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start off and then you're gonna take over when I mess it up. So that's how we're gonna do that. On the actual SWOT analysis, can you hear me okay? We're good? Okay. I think that from the last meeting, we did a fairly good job of getting some bullets on a page that are pretty accurate. I was literally going through and tweaking them, but I'm not sure, like for example, on the first one where it said strong higher education and workforce training network, what I was curious about is it lists publicly funded university college, and I'm like, do we want public? And if we want the bigger picture, we need to add UMHB, we need that A&M Medical at Baylor Scott and White. So on some level, I don't know that we need to go bullet by bullet and tweak each little bullet, but so what I'm questioning and what I'm wondering about, the options is we kind of just go over this bullet by bullet, agree, disagree, move on, or people look this over, identify things that you have questions about and bring them to the top, and then if you want to tweak them, you just email them. So that would be the two options. Do you want to bullet by bullet, or you want to just go to the highlights of things we're wondering about?
I'm good with highlights.
opinion?
If we want to just take a minute to like look over everything and then address anything, we can do that.
Everybody has it, so go ahead and look them over. And if anything's jumping out at you, so I'm going to start because I already have one. The third bullet talks about established major employer base anchored by Fort Hood. What is O?
That was one of the, well, I'm trying to figure out, it was included in our, it was in manufacturing.
When I was looking at the anchored list, we can run numbers to get who are our big employers. If we're looking for who are the largest employers in our 7-county area. But I'm almost wondering if we need to do largest employer by county.
Oh, it's the veterans.
All in T.
Yeah.
So pretty much everything there's in Bell County.
Yeah.
Does that matter for rural? I mean, do we need to add, as rural areas have their employer base too?
I think if we could get the information on what the biggest employers in the rural and if we could do that urban split, that way we can see what's available out there and what we can grow out there. So
Okay, so what I'm going to offer is I can do largest employer by county,
that would be
or
great.
largest, like 3 to 5 employers by county.
Well, in some cases, you're gonna find that's the county or a school district.
Yeah, the largest private sector employees by county. Is that better?
Is the goal just to state that we have major employers, or to showcase that we have a diverse major employment base, or what I guess what's the goal with this particular point?
It's a bit of both, right? It's to say we do have major employers in this area. So these are things that we want to strengthen and maintain here. And it's
So we expect to have an action item in the sense that says we will retain and assist in growth of major industries. Is that the reason for it? Because I don't know that it's necessary to, I don't know where Cynthia, you're going with this, but I don't know that it's necessary to list all the major employers unless there is an actual strategy that's going to be associated with this strength. It's not necessary.
well, I guess that's what the benefit would be, is if we know, we can see if we need to target strategically these areas. So we don't have to actually list them in the SEDS document. I think a lot of these already appear in the background summary anyway, which is where these draw from. So it's more if we have it right in front of us, we can determine if we want to address it in our strategies.
First, I have my workforce brain on, so to me, one thing this says is that we have jobs available. And, having job growth is an important attraction factor. And we do have jobs available, and for right now, the most of them are in Bell County or in McLennan, in surrounding areas. So the strength may be the established employer base to commutable jobs.
Another strength is leveraging these major employers for public-private partnerships. Here's your database, your Rolodex of who to reach out to when you are needing to complete an EDA grant with that angle of private partnerships that could play into developing a roadway or building out an industrial park, things like that. We can leverage those if we know where they're found.
Well, I'll add if I could. I think listening to major employers gives other businesses an idea of where our workforce expertise is. So if we see a lot of healthcare, then we know that we've got a lot of potential employees familiar with the healthcare industry. If we have a lot of manufacturing, then we've got those blue collar workers. So it helps to break down where those skills are within our community also.
So did we mostly land on, we need to figure out the relevance and word it correctly? Is that kind of where we landed on that one?
Yeah, I'm thinking that if we're talking about attraction or showcasing, I mean, maybe we're listing the major employers, but maybe we're listing like the top 5 industry sectors, right? So government, healthcare, um, manufacturing. I mean, you have, Linda, you have the intel that says, you know, of the employees in the region, where are they? Where are they? And it could be based by sector, or if the group feels it's best to just highlight the top 5 major employers in the region. I think that's okay.
I think you're heading in a good direction, I think, but, so that is more regional. It is more 7 county, because it is still medical, it's still government. There's, you know, they apply differently, but knowing who they are is important. Advanced manufacturing is big and growing. And of course, information technology is, it's in every business everywhere, so huge. And then the one that is unique probably to Central Texas compared to almost anywhere else is we actually have defense industry employers that aren't the Army, you know, like contractors and things like that. So our defense industry sector is unique to Central Texas, or which I think is a strength because it brings some pretty high skill, high wage jobs here. Does that seem closer to what we need, you guys?
I agree with that. This is not something, the output of this is not something that a business is necessarily going to look at. So it's how we're developing our strategy and what the work of the development district of Central Texas will be under the grant. I think that's
Okay, so y'all feel free to jump in. I had a pre-look that y'all didn't get. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th one down, nuclear development potential at Fort Hood. One didn't quite occur the way it was supposed to, although it's doing very well. I think nuclear development potential to support rising energy demand is an opportunity more than an actual strength, because it hasn't actually happened yet. But I think it is going to happen just based on what I'm hearing. And modular nuclear is probably going to be a large part of many business solutions going forward. But since it's not actually happening, would it be an opportunity or would it be a strength?
I think the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we removed Fort Hood because that's very narrow, and we just say potential to support rising energy demand, because I think it crosses into a lot of different industries.
So Milo County has some interesting research going on in nuclear energy waste management, in at a Halliburton facility, so there's a lot more going on in that kind of downstream part as well in the region.
And
I'd be interested in learning more about that. So if you have any.
Sure, we can talk about that.
it is actually very interesting. So I have a broad question that probably you can answer. A lot of the value of where we're located relates to the commuting aspect that comes up throughout this. But like where it says we're central location, commutable to Austin, but it's really Austin, Waco, larger metropolitan areas. We're highly commutable. And even in Cameron, it's faster for you to get to Austin almost than it is for you to get here on those back roads. But I'm wondering, is there any advantage to recognize, I mean, commuting to Austin almost strikes me as an entertainment value, but for work value, a lot of people are going to Round Rock, Williamson County, and McLennan County. So what are we aiming for on that one?
I would change it to major Texas markets or major markets in Texas or.
Yeah, that,
I would actually probably see other major MSAs.
is our strength that we're talking about here, I mean, I think commutable has a lot of strength associated with it, but what strength, when you think in terms of strengths we build on and what's the other one, strengths and weaknesses we try to address, but you build on your strengths. So it is a strength to be commutable, but what would be our actionable, now that we know that, how is that valuable to us?
So I'll say that a lot of our tech workers right now are still living in the Austin area and they commute out from there if there isn't the tech job they're looking for in Austin. So it's not even so much the ability for us to send employees to other areas, but that ability to get those high-tech employees from Austin up here to our region. I think that is something that is a strength that we could really pull from and lean into.
What we're seeing in workforce right now is the tech jobs are in Williamson, Travis County, and they are commuting out. Commuting in could be an opportunity, but it's not happening yet for jobs.
And I think that's where we take one of our strengths and we partner it with an opportunity to build that strength up.
Linda, when I think of commuting, I think about our industries, our companies being able to reach their clients. So if they're making products here and they're shipping them, it's easy access to other areas or easy access to the state, even the US, but I know this is not a marketing piece, right? But when I think about commuting, I'm thinking about it. Of course, talent pipeline, and I'm with you there absolutely. We're marketing that the talent pipeline is driving up from the Williamson County, Travis County area, Austin, Round Rock, but also it's commuting, being able to get products and supplies from point A to point B quickly.
So maybe we just, some combination that recognizes this is a strength because talent, logistics and distribution.
So the bullet point just above it says resilient transportation network with sustained investment along the I-35 and US 190 corridors. So to me, that one kind of touches on what you're talking about from a business point of view. Here again, this might be a little narrow, maybe not, maybe it's adequate, just because it lists I-35 and US 190. It's pretty, it gets your north, south, and east, west pretty well, but maybe that kind of addresses. So that being your industry, and then this second one being more about the movement of humans and talent around the region to the right job.
Okay, I think that's a good point, Ginger.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was seeing it too, as kind of a business one versus like a living one, housing one. Yeah.
Okay,
One last comment, maybe just then clarifying on that second bullet that we're talking about for, I don't know, people or talent or entertainment or whatever that may be, but just being a little bit more specific about that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As we discuss strengths, weaknesses regarding transportation network and commutable geographic areas, I don't think that we address the negative consequences of growth on our transportation system that was designed, as far as take Highway 95 or some other two-lane highway in our area. And when you add a data center in that area, or you add some other growth opportunity, you make the limited transportation artery so congested that it increases the commuting time a considerable amount, and it also makes it a more dangerous place to drive on. I know in my home community of Cameron Parish, Louisiana, they build $8, $10, $12 billion LNG facilities on the coast, and they have to commute several thousand people down two-lane roads, and they're having a tremendous amount of accidents because of the situation. And I'm saying we have a lot better transportation here, but we leave it all to TxDOT, and we leave it all to the county commissioners to decide. Now, I just wondered if we should consider any of that.
so on the very, on the threat section, on the very last section, there is one that talks about uncontrolled population growth combined with a lack of regional land use planning that could potentially, would it be a separate bullet, or would we just use the impact on transportation, like the roads the infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth? Would that be an example of that, or would it be a separate bullet?
Potential that should be considered.
Well, it's not just, it's not just something that should be considered. I think it is critical, right? If I had to pick one of the threats that's the most threatening, or the actual one that can be done or can be actionable on by not just CICOP, but the people in the region, it's regional land use planning, and our public transport, for one, should be something that maybe we look into how to expand HOP, how to expand avenues for people to commute to different locations as opposed to just purely relying on cars. But that's something that I consider a lot, was if we get, we're a very commutable area, so we get more developers to come in, they build something out in the county, and then eventually, the county and the city have to take on that maintenance bill at some point. that's just gonna add more and more and more to what we're gonna have to pay for. And if it's uncontrolled, it's just going to make things less commutable. I mean, we already see that. If you go down to Georgetown, right? Like they're commuting in and out of Austin, but it's insane.
Yeah, and you're talking about like farm to market isn't keeping up either. Like they're focused on highways, but farm to market is getting full too. So like I said, on the second to the last bullet under threats, what if we uncontrolled population growth combined with a lack of regional land use planning? And then just as another sentence on that, infrastructure, our roads and infrastructure are not keeping up with growth.
Would that not be covered under bullet 5 on threats?
Resource constraints, water, transit, and agriculture.
That's a little bit
That's
broad,
like not having the money.
but yeah.
You could either tie it to there's no money to do it or the population's growing faster.
I think
Either way, it's captured.
Because if we're talking transit in there.
when I was-
I
when I-
think
when I-
more succinctly, it's growth resulting in population congestion on our public transportation modes, decreasing the commutability of outlying areas and also increasing the danger of transportation. Something to that degree. It's of course,
It's kind of a, I'm from Houston, and I love Houston, but
You're the one.
you can only add so many more lanes to the highway. But at the end of the day, like once you get to downtown, it's going to be 2 lanes anyway. So congestion isn't going to improve just by adding more and more lanes all the time. So
Westview, Southside, Meyerland. I've been there, I lived there. NASA, Clear Lake City.
So when I'm thinking about the threat, and the threat is really the impact of population growth on our transportation network, and it would quite potentially create a situation where we're no longer commutable and we're no longer a great place for distribution and exports of the goods and services that are manufactured here. And so the threat being the growth in the region and the stress on our roads.
Yeah.
And
Quality of life. Don't want to live here anymore.
don't want to live here, don't want to bring a manufacturer here, creating those jobs. So
I put under number 5, the 5th one, I'm just making notes and he'll turn them into real things. But resource constraints in water, transit, and agriculture further impacted by exponential population growth. And then under the uncontrolled population, we added roads and infrastructure are not keeping up with growth. So that kind of captures it, both aspects of it that way. Not enough money and too many people.
And is one other thing on that, is the one right above the uncontrolled population growth, talks about local budget constraints to maintain infrastructure. Is it just local, or is it really, I see it as being affected, or something that every political subdivision in a region is affected by?
yeah, and this is kind of why it's a threat. It's something that's external to the region that's affecting us, because a lot of the budget constraints are coming from state legislation. So there's not much that we can do to like mitigate it except for local. So whatever we can do to make the wisest decisions so that our infrastructure is like, we're targeting those things that are going to give us the biggest ROI, but that are also going to allow us to maintain it for the long term, and bring in more business that we have continuous revenue at the local level. So whatever happens at the state level, we can be more resilient here. So that's why it's kind of, it's listed as a threat, right?
Yeah, so does local in this sense, local means cities and counties?
Correct.
And in general, the SIGCOG region?
Yes.
So, it doesn't mean just cities, it means,
No.
it means not state.
Yeah. I typically, if I'm referring to cities, I like to use municipal. I don't know if that's necessarily always correct, but if I say local, I do typically mean county level or lower.
Why don't we just be specific and say county and municipal budgets?
That would be good.
Maybe region 2, because SIGCOG can have an influence. So it could be region, county, city.
All right. I like the specificity. That is important when it comes to strategy development.
So is this working? Is this productive for y'all? This almost step by step, or did anybody want to throw out any others that we just need to make sure we capture?
I think one of our strengths, I'm just getting a little too specific. So I see that we have a diverse population, but we've got so much different type of diversity. We even to go so far as diversity of housing options, which I know is big when you're looking at bringing in development. What type of housing availability is there? So you can go to some of our more metropolitan areas within the MSAs locally and have apartment complexes, walkability, or we have that ability for regional housing or more rural housing if you wanted to have space, have land, have acreage. I do really believe that that's a strength of the region. Not everybody is looking for one type of housing. I would consider adding that in with that diversity is the diversity of housing options also.
So diverse population, I guess diverse,
Housing options.
and then historical buildings, etc.
Yeah, and an opportunity. One of them is, improve housing options to accommodate residential growth. And I think in that it's something that we can be more specific in the plan, trying to state what kind of development we're wanting to bring in. So if we're wanting to do more mixed use, more walkable, if we're wanting to do more single family,
Under opportunities.
yeah, this is under opportunities.
Oh, there it is.
So we should specify that, and we should specify kind of the areas that would most benefit from this. And I know it's not always popular in the more rural areas to increase density. And a lot of the developers are going out to the county and building single family there just because it's easier and much more profitable. But if there's regulations that we need to pass to make sure that our long-term economic stability is better, and that requires, limiting development out there and making sure it comes to the cities, that might be a legislative avenue that we need to try to pursue.
Wouldn't this one be better broad like this?
Yeah, it would be broad.
Because, how it looks in Lampasas or Hamilton
Right.
might not be how it looks in Bell County. But housing options, I think in general, it's good for an economic development, but I don't know that we want to be too specific.
I think also that we do have that opportunity because there is a lot of land available. And again, we know this isn't a marketing piece, but if it were, it's that ability, if you're bringing in a larger business, bringing in that industry, then there's the options available to be able to build out the type of housing that would be specific for that workforce.
So since we're on the opportunity section, increased regional coordination via SITCOG, I think is already happening.
Yeah.
So to me, that one should be a strength, not an opportunity. But
Well, I guess it's an opportunity mostly because we want to figure out how to best capitalize on it. And so I'm coming up on a year here. So I think for me, it's still something that we're developing, and just looking at the past 5 years and the results of the previous sites, just going back over all of those notes, I saw a lot of interest and a lot of excitement at the beginning of it. But then as the years went on, and I know that was in the aftermath of COVID, so a lot of places were still dealing with staffing and a lot of those kind of overturns. I think when I mean regional coordination, it's best
like,
when
for example,
looking to institutionalize it as opposed to just purely relying on people. Like, these are systems that we put in place for cities and counties and the COG to have a system.
Another
so,
question.
yeah.
You know, as far as general land area and a low number of worker employers per acre or hectare, or however you want to look at it. You've got, say, Jim Swertner, Capital Land and Cattle, in more than one county. He's got the largest cattle operation in the United States geographically, and he's all over the United States. He's sitting there in Bell and Williamson County and the south part of Bell County, and you could take an example of Martinko family owns and leases and manages thousands of acres of dry crop land, primarily corn, wheat, maize, and you can see it all up and down 95, up till you get north of Holland. So, you know, they're not a high volume employer because it's a concentrated business, and but they're using a whole lot of the land. And what we're doing is, in effect, competing with them to try to attract businesses to purchase this land, some of it, you know. So I was wondering if we should have some pro-agriculture and some pro cattle or raising operation type assessment, or at least an assessment of it as a business, because it takes such a geographic area and imposes a land use area that competes with what we have the potential of bringing into the community.
It's also a major tax entity. They are paying, taxes on assessed value. So they are a large economic contributor that we may be ignoring.
Well, they're fortunately usually getting a large agricultural tax exemption. And so if you compared it to a commercial utility, commercial facility on similar acreage, the commercial facility would probably be paying significantly more taxes. But it's a land use that is involved with our food supply on a national and international basis.
The ability to offer essential life-sustaining services, not only to the region, but to the country, right?
It's important.
Yeah.
It's extremely important
Right.
on a sustainable and national level.
And that's what I'm saying. If we want to list it as an opportunity or a strength, it is the region's ability to offer these necessities and these life-sustaining necessities, not only to the region, but because they're large scale, then it's to the greater community, it's to the rest of the state, it's on a national level. You know, some of these products from within Central Texas are being distributed out to Washington and California and New York and, you know, New Mexico, Arizona, wherever else in the country.
Montana.
So from a development district standpoint of things we can actually control, what would our control point be?
Preserving the ability to still have farm and ranch land that works in tandem with some of the new development.
I think I don't disagree. I live in rural, so many of our folks that I value in our region are agriculturally based, but to Linda's point, what can the development district affect? So there is something that we have as landowners is the right to do what we need to with our land. And so we see this, and I have seen it extensively in Milam County where people have sold their agricultural land for solar farms. But that is whatever the property owner needed to do with that land, or was the highest and best use that whether they sold it or leased it. And that is a threat to our food system, to the point. But there is very little, I think, that the development district can do to impact that. Unless it is something along the lines of regional land use planning where a municipality may have some authority for land use planning. You know, counties do not at this point in time have that authority. So most of those things are done in region within a county at large.
Yeah, I think to that end, maybe looking into ways for cities to, you know, coordinate with the county over land use, because I know the counties have no control over it. That's why you're seeing a lot of these developments being built up there outside of city limits. But perhaps seeing how we can best preserve, agricultural land by encouraging certain kinds of developments within the city as opposed to without. That might be something that we can look into.
So the only thing I can think of, just off the top of my head, as a positive to support agriculture, that this organization might be able to do is to convey grant opportunities where process improvements could be offered to agricultural businesses. And they're out there, and that might be one of the things that to help support and retain agricultural businesses, if that is deemed to be something that this board wants to do, it would be, coordinating and communicating those opportunities.
So just to capture the general, go ahead, Cynthia.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I think acknowledging that the agriculture industry is something that we support and value in the SEDS is a positive thing to do in the event that also, like if a grant comes along that a community, a county, or even like our schools, right? Because we're training for skill sets that are used in agriculture as well. So identifying that as a important industry within the SEDS for future grant opportunities, I think is maybe something we should consider.
So as a strength, the agricultural industry in this region is a strength.
Yep.
Okay, so I added strong agricultural production and potential for growth as the strength. And then under the threat, where we already had the uncontrolled population growth, on the extra line that we added, I wrote roads, infrastructure, and agricultural production are impacted by the growth.
And I think we can add an opportunity in there or tie it into one that we've already edited. So we went from large scale data center to innovation technology, essentially, and emerging technology. So there is a lot of research going on right now into regenerative agriculture and different things that can be done in the agricultural industry. So seeking out industry that does that agricultural research, we are a prime spot location for that.
I'm going to jump on a different topic really quick. We have an item under opportunities, I believe it is, yeah, where we're talking about pursuing manufacturing opportunities related to the Tesla supply chain. I'm guessing Tesla was a big announcement when we first developed this. And there's Tesla, there's Samsung, there's SpaceX, there's lots of big brands. My question is, do we want to leave it the Tesla supply chain, or do we want to massage that to be broader, right?
So maybe instead of Tesla, just say manufacturing or advanced manufacturing.
I think that was the best. And I do think, since this is a carryover item, there's a lot of these that were tailored to EDA priorities. I know that's still the case. So a lot of the language is sometimes politically changed to benefit the EDA's priorities, to align with them.
So under opportunities, right above what Cynthia just pointed to, there's build out the innovation zone around the existing research park. Which research park?
That one is a good question. I carried that one over, and I'm still figuring that out.
So we have,
I think that's the Colleen Research Park.
the one that's going in at A&M, maybe.
So
Yes.
I believe, since this is carryover, I believe that when this one was created, A&M had the solar research farm out there. We don't have it, the solar research park out there anymore.
So they have a new IT research going on, and then there's some research it's not necessarily a park, but there's a lot of research hubs going on in Temple right now. So what I'm wondering about, build out innovation zones around existing research, take out the park.
Yeah.
And then we have the broader scope of research is happening in a lot of places.
All right.
Is BRAC just always a risk? because they're not going to BRAC anytime soon.
But we can
Right.
remove that if you feel like it.
I mean, I would say, you know, in a sense, if it ever did happen, we're positioned for it, but, you know, BRACs are never fun. So, bigger picture, is it just a low-level risk, but stays on?
I think that's what I've seen. I'm pretty sure if you go to every set, it's there just as a kind of, we should be prepared to address this should it ever happen.
If we're gonna keep it on, then I suggest that we add the string that we have the Heart of Texas Defense Alliance, which is set up specifically to navigate BRAC.
Fort Hood, well, our Army is modernizing and Fort Hood is implementing some different processes and skill sets, and they're getting ready to start training soldiers on 3D printing, and they're doing some, I think, cybersecurity and those types of things. And so I think that's an opportunity. The new skill sets that'll be coming out of the military for our region, I think that's something that ultimately, as soldiers start transitioning out, will be an opportunity for our region once they've obtained those skills.
So do we want to just specifically list Banamex as an opportunity?
I mean,
Yeah,
Linda, it's what they're doing here, but it's what they're doing in Austin also. I know there's some work with what used to be Futures Army. I think there's something different now, but I think that's an opportunity.
So, Banamex, I'm going to just give examples. Army Software Factory.
Or I might call it the MLS diversification.
What's Army Futures Command call now? Remember? It's got a new name. I'm going to write Army Futures Command, and then I'm going to add diverse. But these are examples, kind of like their skills that they're getting before anyone else. You know, they're kind of leading the rest of us in this.
And I think it's really significant because they align with advanced manufacturing. And so those skill sets that they'll be acquiring really position them when they do go to exit to already have the skill sets that are needed.
It is now T2Com, the
Transformation and Training Command.
So exiting military with new high skills training at Fort Hood. And then we just gave a bunch of examples.
It's better to have the specificity.
You know, it kind of feels good that we have all these strengths and opportunities. Like there's lots of potential in this area.
You mentioned that there are some things that the language is very specific to what the EDA wants. Is it possible, would it be a huge ask to in some way highlight that? Whether that's, you know, color through a color or something, so that we know this is very important from a grant point of view.
Okay.
Because that's what we're doing is we're applying for the next round of the grant that supports this organization. So it just seems to me so that we can understand why it's worded the way it is.
And EDA actually has grants. Like if it's in here, there are opportunities to potentially go after funds to address some of this.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that, because, yeah, if you align it with their priorities, it's a much higher chance of getting certain funding opportunities that. Yeah.
Money's good.
So Scott and Brian, y'all haven't talked much. Do you have stuff that you're looking at? You just haven't had your chance.
I'm just learning.
Okay. How about you, Brian? Anything to add? You're muted right now.
Yeah, I'm sure Linda, I'll go back through the document and kind of wordsmith a little bit, but I think the exercise is very useful.
And yeah, if y'all have notes or any other edits and changes you want to make, I could, and you know what, I will do that. I will send out this file, the Word doc of this one, and you can either transcribe your notes, or you can just scan whatever. If you print it out and wrote it down and send it over to me, I can consolidate those changes.
Okay, so have we covered everything? Anything else jumping out at you that we really want to make sure we get into this document? It's not too late. You can always add later. But are we okay with moving to the established comment period date?
Just real quick, the only thing we haven't really talked about was the weaknesses area. I'm looking at it for a couple of these weaknesses can also be showed as opportunities. So in particular on the second page, the fifth from the last one, or I guess the second from the top. Limited entrepreneurial ecosystem and startup support resources. When we're talking about opportunities to work more with SICHOG, I think that's definitely one of those areas that we can work on is the opportunities to support entrepreneurialism. We, in Bell County, we used to have out of Killeen the Business Resource Center. That doesn't exist anymore, but Killeen just did begin the Business Solution Center, kind of a spinoff of that. But the ability to have BRCs around the region is definitely an opportunity. We have plenty of people with that knowledge and that skill set to be able to bring that even to a smaller community. I think if we can find opportunities amongst those weaknesses, we should be trying to build those also.
Definitely. And that'll go in our strategy segment. Like, have this as a reference when you're looking at those and say, okay, hey, what strategies are going to address which weaknesses, or how can we modify these strategies or add to do so.
And then I will add, what airport are we discussing? Because there are multiple airports in the region.
This is the one that
GRK?
Yes.
So can we take out and airport branding, because we just completed our new branding campaign.
Okay.
And I don't think that Killeen is going to support rebranding again after 2 years.
So to your point about that, there's another one on this list, but this one in particular, lack of hangar space and limited air traveler capture relative to Austin. Hangar space, that's a regional issue. The second part of that is Killeen. in a way, these are combined and maybe would be valuable separated. They're related, obviously, because it's on the air side, but just a suggestion.
The lack of hangar space, one bullet, take out branding, add another bullet, limited air travel.
Capture relative to Austin. Does that resonate?
I believe so, because that could also capture like Temple has their airport. Wayne actually has two,
Yeah.
you know, so, which is also
So
an
maybe this is-
opportunity, knowing that we have multiple airports available.
To me, the limited air traveler capture relative to Austin is very specific to commercial.
Correct.
And maybe that, if we add that word, that
Yeah,
That
limited
makes that-
commercial.
more meaningful. And then the second item, the very top bullet on this page, limited across community communication and low availability of affordable childcare. To me, those are two separate items.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
Outdated infrastructure in small rural communities is a weakness based on my experience in Bartlett.
So the low availability of affordable childcare implies that there's availability of more expensive childcare and there isn't. So maybe it's just availability of childcare because there is limited availability of all childcare.
Good point.
I'm not, and actually costs are pretty stable. I mean, it's not like you can, I guess if you go to a private school or something. And then I think low availability of childcare is true no matter where you are. This is in the back of my mind and it's tweaky and I don't think it's relevant, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Childcare is a term that everybody uses, but it's not a, it is actually early childhood education. But I think if we actually use what it should be called, it will lose its meaning because people won't know that that means childcare. So I think we leave it alone, but I'm bringing it up because early childhood education is what you want. So I don't know that that's relevant, but I'm bringing it up because it might be.
What, I mean, I think you raise a good point. So what if, I mean, if we're tweaking low availability of childcare /
Early childhood education.
early childhood education.
And I like that, especially given even in the public sector. So Colleen ISD just got rid of their PK3 program. And they're starting to really crack down and limit the PK4. So, even, like I said, even in that public sector, when it comes to early childhood education, for the region's largest independent school district, that is declining.
Anything else before we move to our next agenda item? Plenty of time to tweak if you want to.
One page before it were lack of high-paying jobs. I think maybe limited number of high-paying jobs. We do have them, and there are more of them in the region than there used to be, but they're still very limited.
And what is high paying? I mean, does that need to be tied to like a living wage or, and maybe it doesn't need to be addressed in this, but, yeah, I think I support what you're saying.
I think it's less true than it has been, but in fact, a lot of high-paying jobs are here. But I think for the purposes of this, there's enough jobs that Um, So worded in a different way, there are many jobs that are not at a self-sustaining wage. How about if we say it that way? Because there are a lot of high-paying jobs, but there are also a lot of jobs where you can't feed your family without food stamps.
I think that's a really wonderful way to reposition that as a true weakness.
Great.
I have one more comment on the weaknesses. As we get, as the fourth to the last, on that first page of weaknesses, loss of rural hospitals. When was the last time we lost a rural hospital in the region?
I can tell you.
It's
there
been
any
a while. I think that's way in the past.
Okay.
So if we have a weakness, it would be more of a lack of rural health care, of emergency or urgent rural health care.
That's good.
We should not have ended with the weaknesses. I'm feeling kind of down now. Thanks.
Can we go back and review the
Yeah.
strengths real quick?
Let's talk about our strengths again. So, and really, to end it on a positive note, have we captured the fact that our entire region is highly attractive?
I think so.
I mean, when businesses are coming here from all over the world. That's not happening everywhere. But I think maybe we've captured it, but I do think that it's really quite a strength. Okay, anything else? Send them in.
All right.
So now we're up to the action item to establish a public comment period commence date.
Yes. All right. So, given that the EDA does require a 30-day public comment period, and I was wanting to align this with the executive committee and the DDCT schedule, I looked at July 28th as probably the best date to open that public comment period, which means that's the hard deadline for me and the rest of the board to have, in my case, finish the first draft and you guys to review it. So if that feels too close to the strategy development meeting, I think we can push that a week and still stick to the timeline target for September. But otherwise, I think July 28th puts enough pressure on me to make sure it gets done, but gives enough time, as long as we get that input soon, to review it.
So the meeting's on the 19th, right?
On the 22nd.
On the 22nd. And then you're going to do stuff to it.
Correct.
And then you're going to send it to us by,
Well, that meeting's gonna be on a Wednesday, so everybody who's inputting into that meeting should have their form submitted beforehand. So as long as I have that all in, I can probably assemble the report by Friday for everyone to review over the course of the next week.
so we get it on the 24th. We get it on the 24th, and we would have until, so that's Friday?
Yep.
And we would have until Tuesday to tell you.
Yes. If that feels like it's too close of a turnaround, I think maybe going back another week could be good too.
So what date would you suggest?
Works best for you.
I mean, I'd like to get it out in July if possible. Maybe the 31st then.
Before we move off, can anybody not do it that quickly? 27, 28 would basically be reviewing it probably on the 27th, maybe some on Friday or over the weekend, but probably on the 27th you'd be reviewing. How big is it?
It'll probably be about 30 pages.
30 pages. So do we think we need an extra week to do a good review?
I think, there's a draft already of it?
I will compile it all and I can send it out, but the background summary, I know I need to get that to you because you weren't here. So I'll send you all the stuff that we've done, but so far it would be the background summary plus the SWOT analysis, which is this list, but it'll be formatted to fit and look all nice. And then the strategy and feedback. So after that meeting, all of that would be.
And the other reason I ask is if we can get part of it earlier and then like a red line.
Yeah.
So that over the course of a weekend or a day or two, we review the red lines on it.
Yeah.
I think that makes it very feasible.
As you
Well, we'll have it from the work group. We'll have seen it in the work group meeting. So this is just updates from there, right?
yes. So as we work on in these next couple of weeks on the strategy development, I will go ahead and work on working drafts of the final background summary and the SWOT analysis, and I'll send that out for you guys to review ahead of time. So really, that week should technically just be review of the strategy and the evaluation.
After the public comment period, there'll still be an opportunity to make minor revisions to the goals and objectives, right?
Correct, yes.
If needed.
So extra week or no extra week? Which one? Let's go first. Anybody thinks that they can do it by the initial deadline? We're kind of voting on two different things at once. Let's just pick. How many want an extra week?
How about just 2 extra days? How about till the 30th instead of the 28th?
Let's do the 30th.
There you go. Compromise.
That's perfect. All right, I will change that to July 30th. Guess that needs to be a vote though.
Okay, so we need an action item. Can we call Ginger's suggestion the motion?
Motion to open the public comment period on July 30th, ending 30 days.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we got it.
All right, perfect.
Now you get to talk again.
All right, with that said, we just have a quick staff update. So there are a couple of packets in the back, but they all should have received it by email. There's just a little bit of a staff update. So as you all know, or may not know, but Dr. Teddy Clevenger resigned from our board, and we'll miss him. Thank him for everything he did and his service. So Linda here is acting chair now. And will be through October, at which point by DDCT bylaws, we will have officer election. So you are eligible to run for chair or vice chair should you want to again. But everyone that's on the DDCT board currently is eligible. And we will have those officer elections at that meeting. So we have begun the work on the Texas Regional Broadband Program, which has been in coordination with the BDO and TARC. And currently we're in the middle of doing data collection from our region. So I may be reaching out in the coming weeks to see if there's any data I can get from you guys, or I'll probably be sending out similar templates like I have for the SWOT and the strategy development for broadband specifically. If y'all can get that in the right hands, that would really, really help me a ton. But progress is coming on that, and we'll be giving periodic updates on that. Additionally, we held day one of Leadership Central Texas back in June 18th. There's a little report here for you guys to review. But we had attendees from Colleen, from Nolanville, from Parker Heights, from Belton, and from various other areas. A lot of the presenters were from SITCOG, but we also had some state representatives and some local community officials. And of course, Linda presented, she closed us out, which is pretty great. But it was a good show. We have a really good cohort this year, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. But I'm excited to see what comes of that. Our next session is coming up next week on July 20. Yes. It's been a long day already. And then lastly, we did host our newly elected officials class. Included is a list of all the elected officials that joined us that day. It was a really, really great informational session. I think it really helped a lot of those officials kind of gain an understanding of what their role and their capacity is, as well as what role COG can do. Again, these are all people that we're going to want to be in contact with as we move forward to make sure that we bring those ideas and these strategies into implementation. So that's all I have for staff updates. Yes, Dean?
Boardman had two city council vacancies, and they appointed new members at the end of last month and early this month. There wasn't another one. Is there any way that they could review this?
Yes, if you just give me their information or send them my email and have them reach out, whichever way you want to do it, I will happily send over all that new information.
Thank you.
All right. I guess our next item is.
Any comments from the board? Anything we haven't covered?
I think you did an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
Ted,
I miss him.
I do too. He's a good man.
Okay, other business is the next date of this group's meeting is October 8th.
Sorry, that should be October 1st. Yeah. It'll be October 1st of 2026, not the 8th. Same time, our next SWOT workshop, it's going to be the final one. It's going to be Wednesday, July 22nd at 9:30. That one hopefully should run around the same length as this one, but they could go up to 4 hours, depending on how much deliberation and discussion we have. And that's it for other business.
Okay, if there's no other business, we're adjourned.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming. I'll see y'all soon.